Three AIs, the exact same five challenges, one surprising winner, and one result so bad that it made me delete an entire paragraph from this script. I tested ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini on the things people actually use AI for: writing, reasoning, coding, research, and something that almost nobody tests: honesty. Not how impressive the demo looks, not how many features appear on the pricing page. I wanted to know what happens when you give these models real work, especially when the correct answer isn't obvious and the results weren't as simple as "this AI is smarter than that AI." Each model had moments where it looked brilliant. Each had moments where it struggled. And one confidently gave me information that was completely made up. So, if you're paying for the wrong AI or trying to force one model to do everything, the next 7 minutes could save you money, time, and possibly some embarrassment. Let's begin. Satertup here were the rules. 5 rounds, the same instructions for every model, no special coaching, no hidden follow-up prompts, and no giving one model extra information. And these weren't toy benchmarks designed to make a model look clever. They were based on tasks that normal people, creators, students, developers, and businesses already use AI to complete round one: writing. Each model had to produce a cold email that sounded human and could realistically get a response. Round two: reasoning. I gave them a logic problem designed to punish anyone or anything that jumps to the obvious conclusion. Round three: coding. They had to build a small working web tool. Producing code wasn't enough. The tool had to function. Round four: research. I gave them a report that was roughly 40 pages long and asked questions that required understanding information scattered across the document. And finally, round five: honesty. I asked about an obscure topic where the model would be tempted to invent an answer instead of admitting uncertainty. One important disclaimer: AI models change constantly. An update next month could produce different results. This isn't a permanent scientific ranking of every model. It's a practical snapshot of how these three behaved when I tested them under the same conditions. Round one: reading first. Writing. The task was to write a short cold email to a potential client. It needed to introduce the offer, show that the sender understood the client's problem, and end with a simple call to action. The difficult part was making it persuasive without sounding like a salesperson who had consumed 6 energy drinks. ChatGPT responded almost instantly. The email was clear, friendly, and well organized. There was nothing technically wrong with it, but it felt slightly generic. It used the kind of polished phrases that sound good until you realize you've seen the same phrases in 100 other AI-generated emails. It was basically a greeting card with excellent grammar. Gemini's response was also competent. It understood the assignment, included the right information, and kept the message professional, but it was stiff. It had pure corporate energy, the kind of email that uses the phrase "unlock new opportunities" while quietly making your eyes glaze over. Then there was Claude. Claude's version had better rhythm. The sentences weren't all the same length. It didn't oversell the offer, and it included enough personality to sound like someone had actually sat down and written it. More importantly, it showed restraint. Most AI writing fails because the model tries to include everything it knows. Claude seemed more willing to leave unnecessary information out. Could I send the draft without editing it? No, I wouldn't send any AI-generated cold email without checking and personalizing it. But Claude gave me the strongest first draft and required the fewest changes. Round one goes to Claude. But writing is the comfortable round. These models have seen an enormous amount of writing. Now things get more interesting. Round two: reasoning. For round two, I used a trap question. It was one of those problems where the first answer that enters your head feels obviously correct, but isn't. This matters because AI models are incredibly good at producing answers that feel right. They write with confidence, structure, and clean grammar. Unfortunately, confidence and correctness are not the same thing. Two of the models immediately committed to the obvious answer. They didn't express uncertainty. They didn't test their assumptions. They confidently walked straight into the trap. The third model slowed down, separated the facts from the assumptions, and worked through the problem step by step. It got the right answer. The point for reasoning went to insert the model that passed your test. But the bigger lesson is more important than the scoreboard. Speed is not intelligence, and confidence is not evidence. In fact, an instant, perfectly written answer can be more dangerous than a messy one because it discourages us from checking the work. Whenever an AI answers a complicated question immediately, ask it to explain its assumptions. Ask it to solve the problem using a second method. Ask it what evidence could prove its answer wrong. You're not being difficult. You're making the model show its work. Round three was coding. The challenge was to create a small web tool from a plain English description. It needed an input, working calculations, a clean result, and basic handling for invalid information. Honestly, all three produced code that was at least close to working. Pause and appreciate how absurd that is. A few years ago, describing a tool in everyday language and receiving usable code in seconds sounded like science fiction. Now we're disappointed if the button has the wrong border radius, but generating code was only the first half of the test. The real difference appeared when something went wrong. One model reviewed its output, noticed a potential issue, corrected the logic, and gave me the improved version before presenting the final answer. That's exactly what you want from a coding assistant, not just code generation, but code review. Another model produced a functional tool. Although the structure was more complicated than necessary, it worked, but future me would not enjoy maintaining it. The weakest response had a bug. When I pointed it out, the model apologized very sincerely, explained what had supposedly gone wrong, and then introduced a completely new bug while fixing the first one. This is a valuable principle for AI-assisted coding. An apology is not a unit test. The best coding result came from Claude. It produced the cleanest starting point and did the best job of catching its own mistake. But I still wouldn't blindly publish AI-generated code. These tools are assistants, not magical security auditors. Test the output, especially if the code processes payments, personal information, authentication, or anything else that matters. Rounds 4 and 5, round 4 was research. I uploaded a report that was roughly 40 pages long. Then I asked questions that couldn't be answered by reading only the introduction or conclusion. The model needed to connect information from different sections, identify specific details, and explain the report without flattening everything into a useless summary. This was where Gemini became genuinely impressive. Its ability to work with a large amount of context was obvious. It handled the complete document, found the relevant sections, and answered with specific details instead of producing a vague list of general themes. ChatGPT and Claude both gave useful answers, but Gemini felt most comfortable with the scale of the material. If your daily work involves enormous documents, transcripts, research collections, or files living inside Google's ecosystem, that advantage matters. Round 4 goes to Gemini. Then came round 5. Honesty, this was the round that changed how I thought about the entire test. I asked each model about something obscure. The subject sounded plausible, but reliable information was difficult to find. I deliberately phrased the question in a way that invited the models to give me a confident answer. One model did exactly that. It gave me a citation, an author, a publication year, and the name of a journal. The answer was detailed, polished, and completely convincing. There was just one problem. The source didn't exist. The citation was fake. The author was fake. The supposed journal article was fake. And because the answer looked so professional, I initially included part of it in this script. I only removed it after trying to verify the source and discovering that the model had invented the entire thing. That is the most dangerous type of AI failure. A visible error is annoying. An invisible error delivered with confidence can end up in an article, a presentation, a school assignment, a business decision, or a YouTube video. The strongest model in this round gave me a less exciting answer. It essentially said, I'm not certain that reliable information is available. You should verify this before relying on it. The honesty point goes to insert the model that admitted uncertainty. That answer wasn't flashy, but it was the most useful response in the entire test. Knowing something is valuable. Knowing when you don't know something may be even more valuable. Verdict, big scoreboard. So which AI won? Technically, you could add up the points and choose a champion, but that would miss the real result. The surprising winner wasn't ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, it was using them as a team. For writing, and in this test, coding, Claude gave me the strongest results. Its writing felt more natural, and its code required less cleanup. For everyday conversations, speed, voice features, custom workflows, and broad integrations, ChatGPT remains an extremely capable daily driver for massive documents and workflows connected to Google. Gemini showed a clear advantage, but none of them earned the right to be trusted automatically. The smartest workflow is often to use one model to create another to critique and a third to verify. For example, you could ask Claude to write a draft ChatGPT to identify weaknesses and Gemini to compare it against your source documents. That takes slightly longer than accepting the first answer, but it's still dramatically faster than doing everything manually and much safer than trusting one confident machine. Model loyalty makes sense for convenience. It doesn't always make sense for results. The people getting the most value from AI aren't asking which model is best. They're asking which model is best for this specific job. Now I want to hear from you. Which AI is your daily driver, ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini? And did your favorite perform the way you expected? Tell me in the comments and include the task you use it for most, because that's where the comparison gets interesting. Subscribe, because next I'm testing 10 prompt techniques that make all three models dramatically smarter. Same models, same questions, wildly better answers.